Ayurveda Biology, Insights for the Curious Biologist, highlights how traditional knowledge and modern science can work together. We are happy to have with us Shri Sujith, CEO of IKIND, India's first public sector Ayurveda business incubator with a background in applied microbiology. He now focuses on promoting research, innovation, and entrepreneurship in Ayurveda. We now invite Shri Sujith to take over the session. Sir, please.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand what is the kind of group we have. So, how many of you are from an Ayurvedic background? Is there anyone from Ayurvedic background in this group?
I would say like most of them are faculty members. I'm not sure if there's anybody from Ayurvedic group, but we have people from biotech, biochemistry, life science background.
Right, right. Anyone from chemical sciences? Sorry.
No, sir.
Okay, okay. So most of them are like the group is more or less from various branches of life sciences, right?
Yeah. Life sciences, then we have history, we have Tamil, we have some people from English literature,
Right,
and
right.
it's like a heterogeneous group.
Okay, okay, understood. Is my slide visible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we have time till 7 is what I suppose.
Yes, yes, Sujith, yes.
Yeah. Before we start, I would like to just say that I would not be going into in-depth of each section of this, and I am trying to put this as a bare introduction to the basic concept and the subject as such, Ayurveda biology. In fact, to give a very short background, the term Ayurveda biology was probably been first used by Dr. M.S. Valyathan. Dr. M.S. Valyathan is no more with us. He passed away around 6 months before. He was the director of Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute in Thiruvananthapuram. He is a very, very famous cardiologist. He is famous because there was a heart valve which was designed by his team in Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute in Thiruvananthapuram. And the more than 70% of the heart valve surgeries which is happening throughout the world actually now uses that heart valve. So probably you can understand the depth of that innovation and how much it has gone. After his retirement, basically, from Sri Chitrana Tirunal Institute, he was from a royal family of Kerala, basically the royal family of Travancore. And from very young age, he was actually well versed with Sanskrit. So learning a new subject with a Sanskrit base was not a Herculean task for him because of his background in Sanskrit. After his retirement, he went to a village in Chalakudi in Kerala, and there was an Bishak. Bishak, in the sense, means Vaidya, who who was old at that time, and his name was Raghavan Tirumalpad. The country has even given Padma Vibhushan to this Raghavan Tirumalpad. Padma Bhushan to Raghavan Tirumalpad, while Padma Vibhushan was later given to Dr. M.S. Valyathan. So he went and learned Ayurveda under this guru, I would say, Raghavan Tirumalpad, and he made a contemporary critical edition of 3 textbooks which has been used in Ayurveda. These textbooks are revered as the Bible of Ayurveda, and it actually addresses 3 traditions in Ayurveda, basically. The first one and the oldest one is called as Charaka Samhita. which is basically considered to be written by Charaka, though it is not a single individual. Basically, it's a group of individuals which has been represented to one author, Charaka. And based on Charaka Samhita, Dr. M.S. Valyathan also published a book which is now like titled Legacy of Charaka, which was more or less a contemporary translation of Charaka Samhita from a perspective of a modern medical expert. What he could understand from the modern perspective, he has taken into that book. I would strongly recommend everyone to read that Legacy of Charaka. And after learning Charaka Samhita with Raghavan Thirumalpad, then he actually started learning Shushruta Samhita, which is actually, when you look into the chronology of the books, Shushruta Samhita is a book which has come after actually Charaka Samhita. And in Shushruta Samhita, after reading, he actually, as it was actually authored by Shushruta and team, probably you already know, Shushruta is considered to be father of surgery, and if not father of plastic surgery, at least by the world. And one of the biggest hospitals in Asia, which is the Amrita Hospital in Kochi, have a huge statue of Shushruta. It's a modern hospital, but it has a huge statue of Shushruta honoring Shushruta for being the father of surgery. And probably you know most of the big hospital surgery is one of the most important aspect which happened there. So after learning Shushruta Samhita, he wrote a book called as Legacy of Shushruta, which is also very, very important and very interesting. The third book of that is among these classics is basically uh, the book is called as Ashtanga Hridayam. Of course, not very much known after the author. The author is actually Vagbada. And the third book, which Dr. M.S. Valyathan authored, was titled Legacy of Vagbada. So that is nothing other than this book, third book among the Ayurvedic treatises called as Ashtanga Hridayam. It was a translation of Ashtanga Hridayam. When I say translation, it's not a word-to-word translation. Probably I can say it is a translational translation of he has actually took the concepts from that and tried to put it into the kind of textbook. Later, it was when Manmohan Singh was the prime minister. This Dr. M.S. Valyathan was invited uh, to be the PSA. He was appointed as a PSA. Probably you all know, principal scientific advisor to the Manmohan Singh government. And being the PSA to the Prime Minister, he initiated a project called as Ayurveda Biology, which of course the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore and IAS of Bangalore was all prominent people who came out, and then a guideline or a vision document on Ayurveda biology was released as an effort of this. And many experiments and programs started under that. Basically, his vision, when summarized, has two parts to it. One, understanding Ayurveda, using modern biology to understand Ayurveda better. That was one part of it. The second part of that whole document, or like technically the document is not divided into two parts, but I'm telling in summary, it has two aspects to it. The first aspect, looking Ayurveda and understanding Ayurveda through the perspective of modern biology. Second was understanding modern biology from the perspective of Ayurveda and trying to interpret. So according to M.S. Valyathan, he always thought Ayurveda could contribute more to modern sciences rather than modern science contributing to Ayurveda. Of course, both was a give and take. The whole project was a give and take. But as per Valyathan sir, he always believed Ayurveda could contribute more into the understanding, or at least the framework in which we try to understand modern biology would be reconstructed by understanding Ayurveda. This was basically the thought process. And probably it is this document which used Ayurveda biology as a term for the first time. And that is how Ayurveda biology as a science, as a system, came into existence. And probably you are already aware the Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi, where I am now, in Delhi, is actually running a course on MSc. Even PhD programs are there on Ayurveda biology. There's a university in Bangalore which is called as the Transdisciplinary University, TDU. They have an MSc Ayurveda microbiology program. And a few are, most of them are from Coimbatore. In Coimbatore itself, Sri Krishna institutions, the Sri Krishna Arts and Science College, have introduced one optional subject as Ayurveda biology to their subjects, because they had been autonomous. So with that independence, they had launched a program, a course for the life science students on Ayurveda biology. And to my best of understanding, since its enrollment, there had been a lot of takers. At least I don't have the latest details, but when it was launched, the program, the optional program, had a lot of takers for that. So with that background, let me start. I'll be uh, I'll be looking for some responses, because it's very difficult to understand whether
Yes,
people
yes, Sujith,
here
you
are,
can go ahead.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's very difficult online. At least I have
I
not
know.
been yet been able to adjust to this talking to the
Right.
screen. Uh,
Yeah, we can go ahead, Sujith. Yeah.
right, right. So the target audience, as a sense, I've written it as students, of course, not students. What I mean is somebody with a bachelor degree and higher is the target audience of this whole session. And the duration would be 75 minutes. And the whole objective was to introduce key Ayurveda biological concepts and demonstrate their potential in terms of research, and the parallels probably can draw. And of course that part is left to you after understanding what I'm trying to say. And especially I would like to introduce two new subjects which is connected to that, which is evolving, which is called as Ayurgenomics and Ayurphenomics. And of course the method of the whole program is going to be lecture based. The learning outcome of the whole session is, I've taken it into 5 points. One, understand the conceptual framework of Ayurveda as a structured biological system. Second is to decode some of the terminologies which is very specific for Ayurveda. We'll try to see some of the terminologies and try to understand, okay, what exactly is Ayurveda meaning when they try to use these terminologies. Because understanding this terminologies is very important to understand the subject as such. Of course, we all know when we learn any subject in our own system, the first chapter would be the history, or the second chapter would be at least terminologies. In the same way, I've tried to speak a little about the history, or in Ayurveda, history is also called as itihas. And the second aspect is the terminologies itself. So we will get introduced to the terminologies. Then we will try to appreciate some of the concepts which we can relate to homeostasis, metabolism, gene environment interactions, phenotypic expressions, genomics, and things like that. You can actually correlate with all these aspects. And more importantly, we'll get introduced to the domains of the new emerging subjects like Ayurgenomics and Ayurphenomics. Ayurgenomics sometimes is also called as Ayurgenomics, because the first program which Government of India launched in the research, creating a network of institutions to work on that program was called as Ayurgenomics. So for that sense, it is also called as Ayurgenomics. I have tried to use the term Ayurgenomics maximum, because Ayu in Sanskrit means life, and uh, genomics, of course, we know. So it's more of about life and genomics. In the same way, Ayurphenomics term was also adopted in the same way. And more importantly, after the whole program, we'll be equipped to think critically about interdisciplinary research in traditional and modern biosciences. So, what is the prior knowledge required? Yes, I think our group we would probably understand all these aspects, the basic concepts of human physiology and molecular biology. We are aware of the basic genetics like Mendelian principles or inheritance. Then, what a single nucleotide polymorphism is, or what it means when you say gene expression. Then, an exposure to integrative science or philosophy as science is desirable. I guess the whole team which is attending this program is quite pro in this, probably better than me. So I don't think that aspect is required as such to be detailed must. So we'll directly go into the aspects which is coming to the part of the learning outcomes, assuming that this prior knowledge is already there. So why Ayurveda for biologists? This is the first question we would like to address. And after this, I would like to listen to a few of you also to understand what do you feel, both pros and cons about it. One is Ayurveda as a science is very structured. It has, in fact, some aspects have to be carefully looked into based on the time at which such a science was evolved. When do you think Ayurveda has been evolved? How old is Ayurveda?
I think participants can switch on your mic and let it be a dialogue, please.
Expected at least to be as old as the Rig Veda. So somewhere around 15,000 years is the minimum which we can expect, because most of the concepts here and the fundamental humors and the classification of tendencies and correlations are all re-recorded even during the Vedic times. So, and it seems to be referred in the Vedas as if it is general awareness. So I assume that it should at least be that old as a general tradition. And I don't know about the actual codified documented text.
Yeah, yeah. The knowledge as such has existed quite very long. But when you look into, and I should use the term very pessimistically. If we say very pessimistically, it is at least 5,000 year old. And if you look into the kind of current information about how the text was transferred and how teaching and all, more pessimistically, it would be at least 3,000 years old. Let us go with the lowest estimate for the time being for the convenience of the scientific community. Right. But as such as a knowledge system, it has existed even more than that, probably as old as Indus Valley civilization or even older than that. This is one aspect to that. And when you say when Ayurveda is that old, it doesn't mean that everything in the whole thing is actually redundant. No, it doesn't mean that it is very redundant. It actually is very structured. Probably when we learn, I don't know how many of you are from microbiology background. When we learn clinical microbiology, we do have a structure of identifying the diseases based on the pathogens, and we always have a pattern of teaching that or learning that, or even universities push a particular pattern. And these textbooks, surprisingly, Ayurvedic textbooks are also placed in such a way that the cause of the problem, how do you clinically present it, how do you identify that, All this has a clear structure, and these textbooks form actually follow that structure as what is it. So the point here is Ayurveda is very structured, and I would say it is observation based life science. When we do experimentation, our experimentations, we have something called as the observation table. And why do we have observation table? We need to be sure that what we are doing is repeatable. And when we repeat the same experiments, what we observe in the table is very similar, the pattern is similar, or the results are similar. And that is when we call something scientific, right? So this is an observation based, whatever the text says about disease or the text says about the clinical conditions. It's all based on observations they have made. And when I say observations, it's not a single observation. Repeated observations have actually come into a structured information. So this is how Ayurvedic text as such is very similar on how we learn medical science or even biology for that matter. Second aspect is recognized by WHO as a traditional medical system. Recently, there had been a lot of mud throwing on Ayurvedic system by modern doctors, especially in Kerala, saying that it's not an science based on or it's not a um, tradition or a medical system based on evidence. It is merely speculations which has been addressed, and it is a speculation based medicine. But do you think an organization like WHO would actually approve a speculation based science? Even in Wikipedia, Ayurveda is termed as pseudoscience. There is a coordinated effort from throughout the world to mean the Ayurvedic system is what is, but at the same time, the real scientific bodies which is associated with medicine, of course, WHO is one of the major one, has actually recognized itself as a traditional medical system. And more than that, WHO has come out with a document which is called as the minimum standards prescribed to teach Ayurveda. And how so it's not an Indian government document, it's a WHO document on how to actually teach Ayurveda. There is guidelines on that. Secondly, there is guideline from WHO on how to do clinical minimum guidelines on clinical practice in Ayurveda. So I just want to leave the point here that it is a WHO recognized traditional medical system, and if most of them are from Coimbatore. In this group, it is actually a great pride that somebody in Coimbatore has actually been the reason for WHO recognizing it as a medical system. It was the founder of the Ayurveda pharmacy, Coimbatore Limited, who had actually been working behind when the South Asia office of WHO was established in Delhi in 1980s. He went there and said that the system of medicine should be tested and it has to come into the purview of WHO for the benefit of the world. Though the officers initially dismissed calling it as a black magic and not as a medical system. Later, he could convince, and the WHO funded clinical trial happened in a hospital, which is now known as the Ayurvedic Trust in Coimbatore. And it is that clinical trial on rheumatoid arthritis which actually uh, led into the reason of WHO recognizing this as a medical system. So, being people from Coimbatore and Tamil Nadu, you can be proud of that scientific movement which was taken. And it's all more and more happier that September 23rd has been decided to be celebrated as the Ayurveda Day. Of course, Ayurveda Day was always celebrated on Dattatreya, which actually was not a uniform date. It just fall a day before Diwali in North, and I think it's 2 days before in places like South. So there had been a lot of inconsistency on arranging programs and all, but from this year, the government of India has decided to celebrate it on September 23rd, which is actually the equinox of the Dattatreya's for the next 10 years. there was a committee which was kept to select a date, and the government of India has come up with the date of September 23rd to celebrate this. Interestingly, September 23rd is also the birthday of this person, Dr. P.R. Krishna Kumar. So from this year, September 23rd, his birthday is going to be celebrated as an Ayurveda day. That was just something very personal. Like I'm happy about that, and of course, everybody in this group would also be happy hearing that. Soon, an official announcements of this also would be coming. Then coming into offers, like actually, Ayurveda biology also offers something very equivalent to the modern understanding of systems biology. So from that perspective, understanding Ayurveda is very, very important. Then when you come into Ayurveda as such is not a medical system alone. It's actually Ayu means life and Veda means science or knowledge. So Ayurveda is nothing but, in a sense, it's life science itself. And of course, in life science itself, medicine is also included. And when it comes into medicine, Ayurveda is very particularly very personalized, precision based medicine, which is an evolving area in biology now. And as biologists are trying to understand the need for this personalization and need for this precision. So, from these perspectives, Ayurveda is actually very, very important to understand for all the biologists as such, because this is an evolving branch of research happening in this. I would like to pause a moment here, and I would like to listen to at least a few of you on what do you think about this perspective. I want both pros and cons.
Sir, may I?
Yes, yes, please, anyone,
Yeah.
because I don't personally know anyone.
Okay. See, the pro is that it is based on the actual prakriti, or I mean, you start from as is where is what the person's body type is, his temperaments are, and the existing situation rather than based on the symptoms. As in modern science or allopathy moves on with the symptoms and causes of indications and so on. So, as far as Ayurveda is concerned, you start the same symptom appearing for a Vata type or a Pitta type or a Kapha type is totally different in terms of the remedial action. So, it starts from the patient. That is a pro, and it is very personalized, and the approach is to aim at the eradication of the root cause. And the con, which I see in the modern day lifestyle, is that when you're talking about a fundamental lifestyle change, that is the base requirement, or some long term consistent medication or sticking on to a discipline, many of them fail. And even the most famous Kotakal Ayurveda Shala came into existence in 1902 primarily because of the fact that earlier Vaidyas used to prescribe how the medicine is to be made. And these people have to source the medicines and make it consistently and follow a pattern and have it. So, which at that point in time, when the allopathy was taking precedence with the British Raj and so on, this consistency in making the medicine was missing, and consistency in going through that regiment was missing. Even today, lifestyle has further become fast paced. Despite having high quality ready made medicines in Ayurveda, we are not able to follow the patya at many times, or the prescribed do's and don'ts. So,
Right,
probably that is one con which we can see, and still
right,
there are a
right.
lot of evolutions happening.
Right. Thank you for that perspective. I'm more interested to know the pros and cons of why an biologist should try to learn Ayurveda now, rather than Ayurveda as a subject, pros and cons. I'm looking into more if somebody can talk from that perspective, why do we want to, as a biologist, why should we now learn
Sir,
Ayurveda?
I have a point to add on. I feel
Right.
that there are so many Ayurvedic medicines which are plant based. And there are so much of resources in terms of India as a country itself for plant based. So the more you study in terms of what aspect of plants will actually help us in terms of curing or helping us come out of the disease would be the best part. And that's why it's very important and relevant that we study this right now.
Right. Any other thought? I can see somebody called as Alekya here. Is it the same Alekya who was with me in PSG? Not sure. Why? Because she had actually done some work in her PhD, so probably she'll be able to share something from that perspective. I'm not sure. Uh, right. Anyway, anybody else? Right. Anyway.
You could also think in terms of integrating Ayurveda in terms of modern medicines also will be a good option, sir, to look into.
Right. Yes. Janaki ma'am, please. That was Janaki ma'am who spoke now.
No, sir, Shri Vidya, sir.
Okay. Janaki ma'am, please. You have raised your hand. I think you're mute.
So you continue, sir.
Okay. So can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to not make it full screen because when
Okay.
it's full screen, I'm not able to understand what is happening inside because only the screen is visible. So if this is okay, I'll keep it like this. I hope this is okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Fine, sir.
So actually, I'm going to now take you to the last two slides for the reason that we'll our journey is going to reach there. Meanwhile, we'll try to understand where are we going to reach. So if we know the destination, probably we'll be able to go through that way much more better, and probably that would also make you more interesting. See, uh, uh, is there any echoing or something? Is it fine now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so what at the end of the whole session, what we try to do is try to understand these terms, which is there and on the left hand side of the table, like Prakriti, Tridosha, Dhadu, Agni, Mala, Ojas, and also terms like Rasa, Guna, Virya, Vipaka, Prabhava, and of course, Ayugenomics and Ayuphenomics, as I said. Uh, all this has actually a modern parallel, which is actually evolving and trying to link more and more. There's a lot of institutes which is now focusing on this aspects, and I think it is high time as a biologist we should also try to explore these aspects because as faculties and institutions, we have rich human resource of students and PhD students under us. Even when they are doing research on herbs on Ayurveda, probably they are doing that research without understanding these aspects of Ayurvedic medicine. Probably they just take that as a herbal origin and then apply all the possible testing systems which we have in modern science and try to equate it with the understanding of modern science. And meanwhile, the actual concepts of Ayurveda is lost, and we are actually not doing any research on Ayurveda. Rather, we are just doing research on herbal medicine. And with that, I would like to say a statement that herbal medicine is not Ayurveda, or all Ayurvedic medicines are not just the herbal medicine. Ayurveda has its own epistemological understanding, which is very much different from our understanding of herbal medicine. A simple example which I can give is when you look into treating or management of infections, we are always obsessed with the antibacterial or antifungal aspect of the herb which we are used. But for Ayurveda, when Ayurveda is actually trying to treat an infection, this antibacterial or anti-fungicidal effect of the medicine is not their concern. Of course, the medicines which they may use might be having these properties, but they are using it for different reasons and different epistemological approaches. So, when we actually look into the antibacterial property of a herb or anti uh, fungal or any microbial property, in effect, we are actually studying only the modern aspect of that. We never study the Ayurvedic herb in the Ayurvedic way. So, coming back, we will start from something called as Tridosha. Okay. Understanding Tridosha has become very complicated for the reason that the actual textbooks which describe what Tridosha is available only in Sanskrit. The proper definitions of Tridosha or proper discussions on Tridosha is available in Sanskrit. And when that is translated to any other subject, especially English, probably we all use English to learn many aspects, especially from the biology stream. When we try to learn Ayurveda, also we try to learn it from the English texts, which is available on Ayurveda. Wherein these translations have messed up everything. And most of the translations, if you look, Vata is translated as air, and Pitta as fire, and Kapha as water or whatever it is. All these translations actually makes us go mad without understanding what the stuff is, and we always tend to think that it's all stupid things and we don't have real stuff or content in what we are actually looking into. Actually, these translations mess up things. Of course, I was not very good at Sanskrit, but the advantage which I had is the language which is very close to Sanskrit, Malayalam. Malayalam was my mother tongue. So I could read some of the translations in Malayalam, which was not equal to Sanskrit explanations, but at least closer to it. And my understanding of these textbooks in Malayalam and reading in English, actually, I could identify that these translations are the biggest rubbishness which has happened to Ayurveda. So, from that perspective, I just wanted to say that Tridosha is something which is existing, but you cannot actually physically find that. The easiest example which I have found is that how many of you are thorough with like geographical understanding? In geography, to understand a particular location, we use something called as longitudes and latitudes, like equator, Tropic of Cancer, North Pole, South Pole, and things like that. Are these lines really existing? No, right? These are just an imaginary lines which we have created so that we can actually study anything with a particular reference. So when you say the Tridosha aspect of that, it's also, I will not say imaginary lines, but it's not something physically which you can find out from something. So when you say there is a particular Tridosha in your body, each cell in your body also have a Tridoshic pattern. And of course, many of them might have heard about this Tridoshic pattern, or more popularly called as Prakriti of an individual. Just like our eye print, just like our fingerprint, this Tridosha or this Prakriti of an individual is actually personalized to each individual. Most of the text talks about bringing a balance among Vata, Pitta, and Kapha is what health is. But bringing a balance in the sense that doesn't mean that Vata, Pitta, and Kapha should be equal. That is not the balance. Every individual, as such, has their own balance in their body for Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And that ideal individual, just like your fingerprint, your individual balance is very individual to you, and your body tend to be healthy when you are at your individual tridoshic balance. So when a Vaidya is actually trying to treat you, Vaidya has two challenges. One is to understand your Prakriti. What is your ideal Tridoshic balance? That understanding is something which the Vaidya has to make from the observations and the questions and the assessments. Some use nadi, some check their tongue, some check the eye, some apply some questions. And there are multiple methods by which this Vaidya can arrive at your Prakriti, and that is how they write their first prescription. And when the first prescription is done, most of the Ayurvedic Vaidyas would insist you to come for a feedback in 7 days. The reason is they need to be sure that the medicines which they have given you is actually matching with your prakriti. And of course, when you actually apply that medicine on your body, the kind of uh, results which they expect should happen in your body. And if that results is not happening in your body, that means their judgment of your prakriti was different and they need to recalibrate. And this is why many times a second visit to an Ayurvedic doctor is very important, so that Ayurvedic doctor would actually even that is a step of diagnosis. They will diagnose your disease, and then they need to stage your disease, and they have to check which medicine is going to work best in your body. So when they give the first set of medicines, with the response your body is showing, they'll be able to understand, okay, this is how your body is behaving. And a diseased condition, when you're diseased, also there is a vada, pitta, kapha um, kind of structure in your body. Structure in the sense there is a pattern in your body, and that disturbed pattern of your prakriti is actually called as vikriti. So a doctor is supposed to analyze your prakriti. Prakriti means your normal, and then see when you have a disease, what is the vikriti which is exhibited there. So for a doctor or a Vaidya, he has to see both your prakriti and vikriti, your normal and your abnormality, and then try to bring from the abnormal stages of your tridosha to the normal stages of tridosha. And when this has been attempted, this can be attempted in multiple ways. I'm trying to explain it in little detail because when I was in Coimbatore, I always used to at least three people in a week would come to my department and ask, I have to do a PhD, and I'm trying to take a herb, and which herb works for cancer, which herbs work for Alzheimer's. These are the kind of questions. It is not so actually in Ayurveda. It is not that one herb work for one condition. There are multiple herbs and multiple formulations through which actually the Vaidya can achieve the patient's tridoshic balance and remove the vikriti in their body and bring it to the actual prakriti. And this could be done with multiple herbs. This could be done in multiple ways. So that is what it makes very what to say, ubiquitous. Like you have many ways in which you can actually treat a single condition. But when it comes to the modern medicine, of course, in modern medicine also there could be multiple ways, but there is something called a standardization which is coming into picture, and there are international guidelines on how you to, not even guidelines, there are protocols on how a physician should treat. Approach number one, if that fails, switch over to the next approach, and this approach is going to be same in all individuals. Whether it is person X or Y, the medicine for that is going to be the same medicine as per their protocol. But in Ayurveda, for a patient X and Y, the medicine they select would change depending upon the clinical condition or the disease which they have. Even when they have the same disease, the stage at with the diseases, even when they have the same stages, the prakriti of the individual or the tridoshic stage of the individual is also very important for deciding the medicine. So that one medicine or one protocol fits all is not something which is feasible in Ayurveda, and this is because of this tridoshic balance, which is very very important for understanding the perspective of health from a Vaidya's perspective in Ayurveda. I hope the concept of Tridosha is little clear. Of course, this itself is hours and hours of class, but Just understand it's something like latitudes and longitudes, wherein we are trying to bring in a measurement pattern for the individuals. And when this measurement is done, it makes easier for a idea to prescribe the medicine. Now, some other aspects which makes the treatment effective is understanding of Agni. For a Vaidya, understanding the Agni status of your body is very important. And Agni is a term which Ayurveda uses, which actually can be translated into multiple aspects in your body, like the digestive capacity of your body, the metabolic enzymes that is dominant in your body, the microbiota, even microbiota of your body is very important. So depending upon all these aspects is what the Agni level of your body is. So when you say digestive capacity, I would cite one example situation so that you'll understand why that is very important. Normal trend of prescription of medicine, like when you walk into an allopathic hospital, they would definitely take your body weight and age. So the dosage for your medicine is always decided based on the body weight and your age. But in Ayurveda, more than age and body weight, of course, age is important, but more than that, what is important is your digestive capacity. And it is not based on the weight the dosage has been given, it is based on the digestive capacity. So, higher the digestive capacity, the dosage will be more because the time interval on which the medicine would stay in your body is going to be shorter when your digestive system is very smart. That means when the medicine has been taken, the digestive system digests it and expels it from the body. If the digestion is very high, actually the dosage required for that individual would be higher, while the dosage required for a person where the digestive system is not slow, I would say that is their pattern of digestion, wherein it is bit subtle and things they would need a smaller dose. So interestingly, a person who's lean and very timid in activity is probably a person with high digestive power. So a lean person might get a higher dose medicine than a fat person in Ayurveda. This is one of the reasons. Of course, the whole meaning of Agni is not that, but I'm just citing one of this example, which is distinct from the modern understanding of dosages, and that's why I wanted to say. So it's all based on Agni. And just like Prakriti assessment, when a patient comes to an Ayurvedic doctor, that Ayurvedic doctor also looks into the Agni of the patient. And the first step of his treatment, whatever is the clinical condition would be, optimizing this Agni to a normalcy. Until and unless this Agni is normalized, whatever medicine he is giving for your ailment will not work, because the first step which has to be achieved in the body is bringing the Agni to normal. That is one of the reason why most of the first steps of Ayurvedic treatment is very similar for any clinical condition you go. Probably you get a very similar kind of medicines. And I don't know how many of you have actually wondered. I went for a dysentery and they gave the same medicine. I went for a fever and then they gave the same medicine. So what is this? These kind of questions have many time comes. This is the reason. The first step of the medical treatment in Ayurveda is correcting the Agni. So that is the concept of Agni. Then what is the concept of Dadu? Dadu is your tissues. And the tissues, there are different types of tissues in your body. And depending upon the individual, some tissues would be more prominent. This is all depending upon his prakriti. So some managing some issues with some tissues is easier for some individual, and for some individuals it is difficult. And for understanding, and also when the disease prognosis happen inside the body, how these tissues are affected also depends from person to person. And that's why understanding how strong the individual is, how his tissues are, which is sometimes Rakta Dhatu is those things which actually require to synthesize our blood. Maybe the first one which is affected. So correcting that is very important before giving the medicines. This is why Agni Dhatu correction and everything is there. Next one is the concept of mala. Okay, what is this concept of mala? Mala, we all know in simple language, we can translate it into waste. The urine which we pass, the fecus which we pass is all mala, but that is an bigger view of it. When you go into microscopic view or microcosm of that, the waste which is generated throughout all the metabolic processes in your body is actually considered as mala. Even when you eat bad food, what is the residues left in that food which remain in your body is also considered as a mala. And then the the uh, things which create problems in your body, which is actually you actually create issues within your body, and you are now supposed to eat antioxidants to scavenge free radicals. So even this free radicals is all as per Ayurveda is considered as mala. So correction of Agni, understanding the dhatu bala of the body, and then which mala to be eliminated. These are the core concepts of the treatments in Ayurveda. The fourth concept in this is something called as ojas, the vitality or the immune competency of the individual. And for explaining this, I would say during COVID, we all were taking some of these medicines. So, was that medicine? How many of we all started taking one or the other Kabasura, Kudineer, or some aspects? What are these things actually doing to us? We were actually saying that these were immune boosters. But when we look into the actual pathology of COVID, the major critical aspects of COVID came when our immune system gave an over response, more or less like our hypersensitivity or our allergy. So people responding not normal to the immune response was having more and more criticality during COVID. As per Ayurveda, the concept of immune system is such that it should not be performing out of the way, or it should not be very good, or it should not be very low. There's something called as optimal, and the right word for all those Kabasura Kudineer or whatever it is, all these medicines are not actually immune boosters. They are actually immune modulators. Of course, the advertisements and all the advertising industry and everything, when you say boost, that actually affect us, and incorrectly it was used as immune boosters. Even government documents was talking about boosting immunity. So it's not actually boosting immunity, it has to be modulating immunity. People with lower immune, it should give an optimal immune response. People who are having high immune are prone to allergic responses. They also should come to optimal immune response. So an OJS is a balance between these two, the vitality and immune. Even the oxygen conduction inside your body can be compared to the concept of OJS. So all these concepts cannot be equated to a single component in your body, but these are actually identified based on functions of each aspects of your body. Are you clear till now?
Yes, sir.
Do you feel there are some things which is not easy to understand or something? Am I clear till this point?
Yes, sir. Clear, clear. Thank you.
Right, right. That helps actually to understand all other aspects which I am trying to explain next. Then see, when we take a therapeutic component or a therapeutic aspect, we always say is that there is a pharmacodynamics in it, both how the drug interacts with the body and how body interacts with the drug. These two aspects are important, especially when you look at from the allopathic point of view or the modern point of view. That is how we decide the dose or the toxic level, or probably we or know something called as IC50 value of the drug and things like that. So from the modern drug perspective, those aspects are very important. The same way, from the Ayurvedic understanding, there are this five important aspect which is actually associated with the drug. The first one out of it is rasa. And rasa is nothing but taste. And it's all about the therapeutic component which you are taking. And of course, it might not be always a single component, it's a mix, it's a formulation basically. The therapeutic component you take and keep it in your tongue gives a chemoreception, and that's how you sense a taste actually. So this rasa based classification of herbs are there. The herbs are classified based on taste, and each taste is attributed to a particular qualities which you can expect when it is being given to that person. So similar taste is always linked into similar functions in the body. This might look very, what to say, very basic understanding of something. Like when we actually do drug discovery or drug research, this kind of understanding could be very limited, and probably you think there are only five tasters or at least six tasters. How you are going to understand the medicine based on this? But there's a strong science behind this. Probably the receptors of your tongue shows a particular taste only when a particular class of chemicals get attached to that receptors. Am I right? So this rasa based classification is also bringing in classification at the level of chemical perspective also. And probably this was the easiest way when technology was not there, when people were not using all those kind of LCMS or GCMS or chromatographic techniques and things to isolate the herbs and isolate. This was the easiest way to recognize, okay, what particular group of components are thus representing. And that was one way they actually try to classify the formulas and the herbs based on resa. And interestingly, probably it is now 8 years that there is a publication which has come from Romania, if I'm correct, wherein the pharma people of that, I'm not able to recollect the name of the college, but that is a college in Romania. They did a study whether the chemical families, when you say chemical families, we all know that when chemical formulas of a particular thing has been taken, we actually have functional groups and things which actually, if it the functional OH group is present, these properties are there. So what they compared is whether the understanding of taste or whether the understanding of whether the presence of common functional groups is giving common therapeutic properties, or whether the similarity in the taste is actually giving the common uh, therapeutic effect. They did a research on that and they found that taste is a better indicator than actual looking into chemical formula or chemical family or functional group, whatever it is. Taste is a better indicator of indicating the probable function. This was their conclusion. I can probably share the link of that. Maybe I can share it to Madan sir later, and Madan sir can circulate. This is a very interesting study which has come out, and
Oh, sure, I'll do it.
right. This is actually one way of simplifying very complicated process. Right now, what is happening is that we are taking everything to a complicated level, wherein, of course, that's all because of the reductionistic approach which we had in our science, and that science has brought in that thought process into everyone's mind. But even systems biology, which is a part of modern science itself, is correcting this, because of what you see at reductionistic level is not exactly replicated at a macro level. And we do have methods and possibilities on understanding properties and things at the macro level. And at the macro level, the rules of physics and chemistry functions entirely different than the micro level. And of course, now it's all not even micro, it is nano and pico. So what you see at nano and pico is not what is happening at the macro level. This understanding is what we have to slowly evolve from, and the methodologies which they probably have used in understanding an herb has to be rediscovered, so that our drug discovery process will be faster and less expensive. So that was about rasa. And then next it is about guna. Okay, when you say guna, and modern equivalent to something which we say as guna is, okay, when we call something as antioxidant, or we call something as antimicrobial, or we call something as antipyretic. All this is the guna which we associate to that therapeutic compound. In the same way, in Ayurveda, this guna which has been associated to a therapeutic compound. And most of the time, this guna, rather than calling it as antibiotic or antipyretic or anti-aminotic or whatever, they actually attribute it towards the Prakriti or towards the Panchamahabhutas. So guna is sometimes called as Vatahara. Vatahara means which actually reduces Vata. Pittahara, which reduces Pitta. Or something which actually induces Pitta. These were attributes which they actually gave to the herbs. And this understanding is also very important for an Ayurvedic Vaidya. And from this understanding, so this is all about how the herb is acting on your body. And next comes the virya. Virya means, okay, again coming to the example of antimicrobial, like we as long as the circle is bigger and bigger, we say that it's more effective, or lesser dose is actually required to create an LD50. Yeah? In the same way, if we have 5 or 6 herbs, which is Vadahara or Pittahara, that also has a virya to it. Like this herb is more Vadahara than this herb. So that kind of arrangement of understanding of these herbs is actually called as virya. So a Vaidya is supposed to understand the rasa, guna, virya of that drug which he is prescribing, so that he can understand what can be expected from a body where Vada is more. If he is prescribing a Vada medicine in his second consultation, he should see signs of Vada reducing. If not, he has to correct his diagnosis of Vata is more in him and then change the medicine. These are the aspects which a good Vaidya will actually look into. Next is Vipaka. This is Vipaka in the sense, okay, we have Vadahara medicine, Pittahara medicine. If we are giving two Vadahara medicine, does the body react to that in the same way? Vadahara medicine is given and it gets digested and it is absorbed into the body. And when Vada is coming down, let does this therapeutic component also do something else in the body? Whether it increases pitta at the same time. So if it is increasing pitta at the same time by reducing vata, pitta, the diseases related to pitta being higher should not come in the patient. So what happens is they actually mix that herb with a pitta hara thing also, so that the formula, when it's there in the body, the possible effect which you don't want is actually negated by the use of the other herb. And this is why Ayurvedic medicines at most of the time have multiple herbs. It's not single herb, because a single herb would have its own virya And when it exhibits its vipaka, this vipaka, if it is unintended, that has to be controlled by the other herbs in it. And this is why most of the time Ayurvedic medicines come as multiple ingredients in it. And the net effect of the whole thing is considered as the pharmacodynamics of it. And to an extent, all these formulations were made to make a normalization. Like we have variety of patients, variety of clinical conditions, and this variety is also individualized. So making medicine has always difficult. So when we are treating common diseases, this common formulations came into existence. But even when common formulations are given, if you go to a good Vaidya, he again mixes it. He mixes one medicine with other, or asks to powder one medicine, add into this. That is his understanding of that individualization of that patient. And that is very, very important. The third thing is the prabhava. Prabhava means after all this, what remains in your body, whether that brings you to the optimal conditions. And when that brings you to the optimal condition of your body, you will have an aura. You will have an aura in the sense your life, your all these aspects, your Agni will be good, your Dadu will be good, your Mala will be proper, your Ojas will be good. And that is what bringing into. So what does that herb bring? What Prabhava that herb brings in you is what the property. So when a new drug is identified in Ayurveda, I'm talking about the old tradition. Now new drugs are not being introduced because we have lost the methodology of how do we decide this guna, how do we decide this virya, these vipaka. Right now, all Vaidyas are following the classical text, and what is written in the classical text about that herb has been blindly followed. We need to research on what exactly was the criteria to decide this resa. Of course, the resa you can decide as a date, but in exceptional conditions in textbook of Ayurveda, some herbs they have mentioned that even though it tastes like this, its attributed taste should be a different one. So this is all from a long observation and understanding, and therefore try to regroup it based on that. So all herbs which is mentioned in Ayurveda has been already been attributed with what is its rasa, what is its guna, what is its virya, vipaka, and prabhava. So when a new drug which is not at all mentioned in Ayurveda has been brought, we do not have parameters now to understand its rasa, guna, virya, and vipaka. We, as a biologist, probably have to rediscover the science and see how these texts actually have come to these conclusions. This is one strong area of research. There are now a lot of engineering colleges working on something called as e-tongue, e-resa identification for helping Ayurvedic. In fact, this was because of this SIH program. SIH, I don't remember what was the full form of that, which was started by the Ministry of Education. There is this startup hackathon, H is for hackathon. S I forgot. So okay, that program actually was being done by AICT in all the engineering colleges, and many engineering colleges came with this concept of developing an e-tongue for understanding the resa of a herb and all. Of course, that's all just the brim of a possibility of research, but these are areas wherein we should focus on research in the future. Then, of course, we understood dosha. And I already said that it is this dosha, this individual dosha of your fingerprint, which is actually making your body constitution. So this is actually called as a prakriti. And when you have your own prakriti and it changes due to some conditions, then it is called as a vikriti. So prakriti is something which is your constitutional type from birth. Ayurveda says that your prakriti can never be changed. Your basic prakriti will remain same. At the same time, Ayurveda also says that your prakriti can be conditioned. And for condition, it could be influenced from the genetic predispositions. Of course, we all know this. Ayurveda clearly says there is genetic predisposition to your prakriti. Then environmental factors can affect the atmosphere, of course, they have not called it as epigenetic factors, but when we look into it, actually it is the epigenetic factors which they are discussing. All the epigenetic factors which we recognize now as possible to influence how our gene is expressed is actually coming under the purview of how Prakriti can be affected. And this can be equated to something called as biotypes or endophenotypes. Probably people who go to gym probably know you are classified into individuals of different category. Endophenotypes are actually labeled and given, or at least in social media now it has been you are an endomorphic structure, that this and all all these endophenotypes. In a way, Prakriti can be classified into these endomorphic types also, but I'm not selling that both are exactly the same. And basis of the stratification in Ayurveda biology, there is a lot of research which is possible to understand. And I can actually share a lot of lot of publications which has come in this aspect. Each publication would need at least one class to explain whole the thought process works, because of course the genetic thought process and the other aspects of genetic mapping and the other things would be easier for us to understand. But what was the Ayurvedic thought process behind that needs a lot of time. But I can still share all those papers with this background which you are creating today, with this understanding of what you are learning today. Probably you will be able to understand those papers better. Otherwise, if you had read that, probably you would have not understood what it is. So this possibility has been explored, and last 10 years, lot of work in the sense in different pockets. In Pune, some institutes, in Delhi, some institutes, in Mangalore, some institutes, and of course, inspired from there, Chennai, and of course, though we also had some initiatives, but our instrumentations in Coimbatore was not that good. We tried to collaborate with a lot of leading institutions in Coimbatore, but we were all looked down that what genomics would you do by other institutions, at least the prominent institutions which had facilities in Coimbatore. So we could actually not do that, but we could collaborate with institutes abroad in Europe, and we started some studies. And there had been so many promising results from that also. But the point here I would like to convey is that this use of SNP analysis, immune gene studies, all are I can barely tell you the framework in which how the studies are done. Actually, large group of people are being brought in with probably similar characteristics or a similar disease or something, and then they are divided into different prakritis. As I said, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Uh, there is a individual pattern for everyone, which is very individualized, but at the same time, they can be categorized into groups like people with more Vata, they are called as Vata predominant individuals, and Pitta predominant individuals, Kapha predominant individuals. These days, there is a lot of normalizations happening, and it's very difficult to find single Prakriti individuals. It is very, very rare. So many time it is like Kafavada Prakriti or Pittavada Prakriti or Vata Kapha Prakritis, all combinations depending upon which part of that Prakriti is higher, that was placed first in the term. And Dvaya Prakritis, like two Prakritis in combinations, and not very rarely three Prakritis in combinations also is being seen these days. So this stratification is first made in group of individuals, and probably if it is a particular disease condition, any gene associated with that disease condition is identified, and how that gene behaves in these different prakriti types are studied. And now there are not many researchers, but there are at least handful of researchers which is slowly getting published, and all these results have shown that this diversification or this categorization of prakriti has something to do with how these genes are expressed. So this field of study of doing it from this perspective is actually simply called as IU genomics, or since the first project was called as Ayur Genomics, the subject is also called as Ayur Genomics, but I would prefer using Ayur Genomics. And if you think the possibility of such a field was all because of human genome, project. We know the Human Genome Project was there, and Human Genome Variation Project was also there. When the genome mapping was done, all these possibilities actually was open to us, and that's how IUgenomics access system of study has actually emerged. The same way, actually, I don't know how many of you are very well aware about like when we thought of human genome mapping, or when the Human Genome Project was started, probably way back in 1990s or 95. The whole idea, of course, it was completed successful by 2000 itself. Uh, but the whole idea when the whole human genome mapping was started by multiple countries together was actually, if you know all the human genome, we will bring solution for all the diseases for humankind. This was a promise human genome mapping or the human genome project had when it started. But the end, when the whole human genome was sequenced, human genome sequencing was done, and when we looked into results, we understood something more than the genetics. Epigenetics is important, and more than genetics and epigenetics, the way how these proteins get expressed, even among the twins, the way the protein expressed is all individualized, and all those aspects is what which decides your phenome, how your phenome is there. So looking at into this, world has now started something called as Human Phenome Project. And Human Phenome Project, I don't know how far India has progressed into it. Probably we are still at the baby steps of Human Phenome Project, but China is a leading country which is actually leading this human phenome projects, and there are databases which has been launched now based on this phenomes. And how did China land into this? It's because of their in-depth knowledge. All the modern researchers in that country have their in-depth knowledge about Chinese traditional medical systems. Even in China, for you to practice the modern medical conventional medical systems, you are supposed to pass an exam on Chinese medical system. Without passing that exam, you will not get that practicing license in China to practice modern medicine. So this understanding of their Chinese medicine helped them to revisit what they know from modern medicine, and that's how they actually got into understanding of phenome. And if you critically think, looking into the prakriti of an individual, Bhaya Vaidya is never looking into his genomics. It's actually looking into his traits. If you clearly look into the forms and patterns, how Ayurvedic doctor looks into, it is his phenotypic traits which actually he notes and decides which prakriti or which vikriti is expressed in this prakriti. This stratification has rules. Recently, Government of India had also launched something called as National Prakriti Identification Project, and I don't know how far, how many of them have been. There has been Guinness records and all of recording maximum number of people's Prakriti through that app. There was an app launched in the last Ayurveda Day by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the government is very seriously taking. Although government is taking it very seriously, I still have so much of hesitance in terms of the background data. Are we really collecting this data based on a proper standardized validated forms is still a question. People may argue that it is standardized, but I still have doubts. All these aspects are possible only when we biologists try to understand Ayurveda and try to interpret it from these aspects. And that is where we have to contribute to this nation, and that is where we have to contribute to the world. When we all say that India believes in world peace, or when India is all about loka samasta sugino bhavantu, the Indian science is how we can bring or make the health of Indian people or the people as such the humanity better, is what we have to be focusing. For that, iuphenomics as a subject is going to now there are databases which has come based on phenomics also. Just like our genomic databases, phenomic databases have also started coming up, and each particular phenomic trait is now being associated with probability of a particular disease also. Slowly, this knowledge database is improving, and luckily, these databases are being there is multiple countries which is being getting involved into it, and more understandings are coming between countries to share this phenomic databases. Soon, India would also come into it, is what we are expecting. For that, we as a biologist should try to understand its importance, and we as a biologist should push the country to get into accessing such databases and things. Very, very good that we all have something called as one country, one access for assessing research publications. In the same way, we should also be pushing into getting access into such databases also, and utilize those understanding not just to mimic what the West is doing or just mimic and recreate more and more proofs for the experiments which they have already done. Instead, create our own protocols, try to understand from a nearby Ayurveda college, collaborate with them, try to understand these aspects, bring in collaborative projects, bring in aspects where we can actually bring in progress. It should not be just made in India. It should also be research in India, and the research should not be just like made in India. Should not become make us as a production hub of somebody else's products. That is not what the intention of made in India is, or make in India is. The intention is our own technologies are made in the same way. Rather, we researching what they have done and again using the same methods. That is not what we have to be doing when I say research in India. When I say research in India, it should generate patterns, it should generate intellectual properties and stuff related to our own sizes, and that should become our property in terms of intellectual properties and IPRs. And this integration of all these systems is very important for that. So it's 7 o'clock. I'm trying to conclude. This is the table which I have shown first. I'll try to just explain quickly. When I say Prakriti, its classical meaning, or a meaning in just a few words, could be the innate psychosomatic constitution of your body. And the modern parallels which you can actually look into is the genetics, epigenetics, biotype, endophenotypes, and all these aspects are very similar to the concept of Tridosha. And its relevance in research is that it can be used in population stratification, just like the example of genomic studies, which I was telling. In the same way, Tridosha, when you say the simple understanding, I've tried to define what is Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and dynamic regulatory forces. The immediate, the modern parallels to that is the kind of functioning of nervous system, the metabolism, immunity, structure stability. All these aspects are actually comparable to this tridoshic systems, which they are only thing is they have brought in some longitudes and latitudes so that you can measure the functions based on these aspects. Then, of course, the Dadu, the seven structural functions. It's the same in modern also. It's the tissues and the organ systems basically. And when you say Agni, it's the metabolic fire responsible for digestion and transformation. Digestion and transformation in the sense transformation of anything in your body, not just your food. Uh, or not just the transformation in your digestive system, all the transformations, which is the neuron conduction, all those aspects have to be connected to that. It should be compared to enzyme action, gut microbiota, or mitochondrial functioning, or even neuron conduction functioning. All this can be actually compared to that. Then when you say mala, it's waste products of metabolism. The excretory process, the detox pathways, or the the radical free radical scavenging and other, all those aspects can be considered to as the equivalents of mala. And just as I have already said, the essence of immunity, the vitality, the immune competence or resilience of individual, the oxidative balance in the body, all these aspects can be actually connected to the ojas. And rasa, the taste, or the chemosensory signaling, GPCR ligand interaction, all these aspects in modern science can be compared to that. And when you say guna, the physiochemical traits like viscosity, solubility, polarity, all those aspects can be. And when you say virya, the bioenergetic impact, the thermogenesis, all those can be actually compared to that. Then, in case of Vipaka, the biotransformation, metabolomics, gut microbial metabolites, all those aspects can be actually compared. When you say Prabhava, the unique molecular action mechanism can be compared. And again, I'm just introducing these two terms, iogenomics and iophenomics. This is very much compared to all the genomic research which is happening. Of course, the only thing is you have to bring in that component of Ayurvedic understanding. And I hope I've tried to, this is, as I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but that tip will help you to follow down below and do some research on your own and reading more and understanding and try to actually learn more. We can even have more sessions depending upon what the organizers think on these aspects later also. But for time being, thank you.
A wonderful session, sir. Sir, if participants face any questions, participants, if any questions. Okay, Sujith, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Excuse
Rogul,
me.
sir. Any questions, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sir.
Thank you, Sujit. Thank you very much for the brilliant and comprehensive session of all possible basics we can touch upon in such a small time. And one aspect which you touched upon is that whenever we are finding, the Chinese medicine, which currently is deeply researched in phenomics in China, is actually an offshoot of Siddha Parampara from South India. And but unfortunately, we have lost the touch because the morphology of each plant varies according to its environment, and its rasas and gunas also change accordingly, and the virya changes. And having worked based on agri-tech project, I could understand this very minutely. And here, when you are getting a new context from a new continent, maybe a buckhorn, some new asparagus, a few herbs which are not native to our land, and same knowledge you need to use to classify that, reclassify that. I think when we
Asparagus is ours. It's a cumin in Ayurveda.
okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
my ignorance. Sorry, I just wanted to refer to something that is European or North American. Yeah.
Yeah, understood.
So when we are trying to classify into the pharmacology of the logic we have in our index system, what prevents us beyond the Sanskrit text curated by our rishis and stalwarts is primarily what I understand is the perception or the sensitivity with which they used to operate, the perception with which they used to be able to assess this and its impact. How do you see that our generation, or at least the next generation, which offshoots from us, evolves to a level where you take this science with you, and wherever you plant it, they are able to adapt to the environment, adapt to the climate and their herbs there, and classify it and start it afresh? Because from what we understand is that most of these classifications in the Indic system and the shamanic systems have always been this way, be it Siddha, be it Ayurveda, be it the South American traditions of native medicine. So, how do you see that coming through in the future? I just wanted your perspective on the future.
Yeah.
Oh,
two things. One is our faculties, so-called the senior faculties, should be going through a kind of training programs and understanding these aspects. And it is very important. The first step is this program itself is an example, so that we are ready to do a crosstalk between us. That is first which has to happen. The crosstalk has to happen between us. A sad situation, I should say. In Tamil Nadu, people from Siddha and Ayurveda are fighting each other for prominence. Of course, I understand Siddha is a place like Tamil Nadu is the only place where Siddha is surviving. So they have their own survival issues when Ayurveda has also been but this is something which has to be changed. And as a biologist, we should not be biased with any of these systems. In fact, as you said, the Chinese medicine has a lot of similarities to Siddha. The same, it has a lot of similarities to Ayurveda. Also, the thought process of Ayurveda. Only thing is the terminologies are very, very different. Though the meaning of the terminology is the same, that usage is different. When you look into Tibetan medicine, or when you look into the other traditional for that system, even Brazilian system of medicine also talks about a lot of similar concepts. So my point here is rather than seeing what is best among these systems, there has to be cross talks first between individuals of these systems, and then we should try to understand the common thought process as a biologist and establish research on that. Second thing is uh, this kind of researchers are basically fundamental researchers. For some reason, we have become very much obsessed about technology, or that kind of reductionistic. I don't know how many colleges in the country now has basic biology as a course, or like it has become nanotechnology. It has become like when I was studying, all this biology, botany, and all became biotechnology. Now all this biotechnology and everything is slowly closing down and becoming nanotechnology. Very soon it will also become picotechnology. So slowly we are losing people who understand the basics. The basic fundamentals have to be strengthened, and the basic fundamentals of these subjects like Ayurveda and our basic fundamentals have to start cross talking. And when I say our, I mean from the scientific community. Of course, I'm somebody from a modern science only, luckily born in a family with an Ayurvedic background, so I had an opportunity to look into both aspects. And when we do research in our institutions, many times we don't look into these perspectives of how these sciences of Ayurveda work in their clinic. Rather, we get excited about one herb of that and try to study that herb from the perspective of modern science alone. So, of course, it's not easy because PhD students have to complete their PhD thesis on time. They have their own protocols. So, already established protocols and going through that is easier. But what I say is that even when we do that, at the same time, make sure the literature review which you are doing is also mentioning about these aspects. Why? Because a lot of data which we had 10 years before is slowly vanishing. A lot of data we had 50 years before is about one simple example I say. In Kerala, there was a tradition called as Marinu Petti. It's like 64 boxes were arranged wherein all these herbs were arranged in terms of its virya, like Vata, Pitta, Kapha. In that terms, it was arranged. And depending upon which is more Vatahara, which is more Pittahara, like there were six classifications. And based on this, on increasing and descending order, there was a pattern for this 64 box chambers which they have. Even now, the 64 chambers are there. If you go to a trader of herbs, you will find that 64 chamber thing, but nobody knows what was the correct order. And I remember my grandfather talking about the importance of this order. And of course, even I couldn't preserve it at my home because, when generations move on, these things are disposed or something happens. But this pattern of 64 columns was basically a periodic table of the gunas of a herbs. We have lost it, or at least we are in a brim of losing it. I've been proposing, I proposed it to INA, and also I proposed to DBT on this, on various projects, but the scheme guidelines which comes from these institutes or agencies are not exactly suiting for this. Is more of like a social data collection experiments or something. So my point here is simple: we have to try to preserve first whatever is there. Our efforts should be coordinated into preserving all this. And of course, IKS as a project under AICT is doing a lot of things. Next is trying to do empirical researches on these preserved models of understanding and trying to upgrade or bring it correlation to the modern understanding in terms of its biochemistry or its biology or biophysics. This is what we have to do immediately. I hope I've
Understood.
answered.
Understood. Like whatever is about to perish, we need to first safeguard that so
Yes,
that we will,
yes.
and in that process, we would be having to use some level of perception, some level of wholesome thinking, or like they say,
Right.
the height of cultivation runs into simplicity. Rather than doing complications and researches, trying to simplify into the fundamentals is something which we can do now when we are preserving this. Am I getting it right? So,
Yes, yes, yes.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. We'll meet tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you. Sir,
Thank you very much, sir.
Sujith, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful session, which is actually, as you are saying, that the basics actually, that fundamentals and basic concepts of traditional Indian medicinal system, of course, sir.